welcome to our initial flipped classroom action here. Let me find where we're supposed to be. Okay, there we are. Biodiversity, that's what we're doing today. Biodiversity, what is it? Bio means anything living. Diversity means differences. Biodiversity consists of different types of diversity. There's aquatic biodiversity, which is anything in water, both salt and fresh water, rivers, lakes, streams, ponds. And we also have terrestrial biodiversity, and that's everything else, everything that's on land, even if it's frozen land, for example, up in the Arctic. Okay, why do we give about it? Well, it helps to keep us alive, and it supports our economies. How does it support our economy? That's something we're going to think about. Possibly look at the questions too. I forgot, this prezi is available on the webpage, and just below the prezi there is also a question form that you have to fill out as you go through this prezi. Okay, so if you don't get it right away while we're doing this on this recorded one, you can always go back and look at it yourself. Okay, so human activities like agriculture and industry, production and consumption, recreation, these all contribute to degradation. For example, agriculture. One of the biggest things about agriculture is cutting down natural areas. For example, forests, tropical forests. In Brazil, it's not uncommon to find cattle farmers cutting down the forest so they can have more grazing land. These are areas that allow the cattle to graze, eat grass basically, and when they do that, what they're doing is cutting down the tropical rainforest, whereas we all know, we talked about this before, there are many, many different types of organisms living there. And these guys are really important, especially due to interdependence. Industry is another one. We use a lot of land for industry, so we have to clear all the natural areas, building buildings, and we also have problems with pollution from industry, etc. Economic production and consumption. All the different things we make, they're not just created, they come from something else. So for example, they are made from wood, plastics, which come from fossil fuels, metals that need to be mined to make everything around you that's metal. Okay, recreation as well. They're talking about in Bangkok Post yesterday that they're going to try to turn the port area into a park, like not a natural park, but more of an area that's going to be groomed. So it's not going to be something that the organisms could use naturally. So how do we repair these things? Well, we can restore them. Restoration, that means to put them back to their original form. We can rehabilitate them. That means that we fix them. Okay, so we try to fix them and try to bring it back to how it was originally. We can replace them, which we know that, and we can create artificial ecosystems. Some areas in the United States now, what they do is if a wetlands, for example, is needed to be destroyed to create something else, what this company or this group would have to do is create another wetlands in a different area, so that overall the same number of acres or landmass would be available for wetlands. So human activities, what are some of these? Well, the effect of biodiversity, either directly or indirectly. Directly through degradation, destruction, changing the state. Now, just because we can't see the changes doesn't mean that the natural chemical cycles and energy flows haven't changed. They also change the number and distribution of species. If we look outside our front window there, you can see the change that has happened from a grass wetland into now we've got a wet Gulfland. Well, it should be better in the future, but at the moment we probably see a lot fewer organisms running around up there than we used to. Also, as we all know, because of all the pollution studies we've already done, air, water, and soil is another issue, pollution of these things. All right, indirectly through climate change, which we've been talking about throughout the whole year, and loss of biodiversity. That means less different organisms. This doesn't mean just animals, it's plants as well. Plants could be even more important because they're the base of all. Human activities affect forests. Different types of forests, for example, old growth forests. These are ones that haven't been cut down in a very, very, very long time, if ever. These guys have massive amounts of biodiversity and a very, very rich ecosystem. Second growth forests, these are forests that have been already cut down and have regrown back to their pseudo-natural state, as well as tree plantations. These are usually areas that are replanted after a forest has been cut down and before it gets to second growth. These guys are subject to deforestation. Consequences of deforestation are quite massive. I'm not going to talk about these. I'll leave them up there for you to read as I talk about another thing. In Thailand, deforesting or the forestry industry does not allow for people to cut down teak trees. Now, this came about because of a problem that was happening up north many years ago, that people were cutting all the teak down because teak is very valuable. It's very, people really like to use it to make furniture, and it's expensive. People build houses out of it because it lasts a very long time. One of the problems is, when you cut the tree down, you're also killing the root system. The root systems hold together all the mud and dirt. Now, if you don't have the root systems holding the mud and dirt on hills, and it rains a lot, what happens to all the mud and dirt? Well, it's going to slide down and cause mudslides. So there was a lot of problems with mudslides in the past. So the government decided to make it illegal to cut down these trees. Now the problem is that teak wood is extremely expensive because it's even more difficult to get. Some solutions for this. Managing forests more sustainably. That means not just cutting it down, but cutting partly for either using clear cutting or selective logging. Selective logging means choosing only some of the trees that you want. Clear cutting means cutting everything down, burning it, slash and burn, and trying to mimic a natural forest fire. Okay. Another thing is recording timber that's cut down so that we know if something is legal or illegal when they cut it down. So if it's illegal, the problem is that we cannot control where it comes from. So often big chunks of land will be deforested. If it is legal, that means we can regulate and say, okay, you guys are allowed to cut down this many trees in this area, and we can study and follow what's happening so that we can minimize problems with the previous things that were listed there for you. Okay, this is happening in tropical forests mainly. Some solutions, prevention. How do we prevent it? Well, in Thailand, for example, in Khao Yai, if you go for a hike, you're going to see people with guns. So they protect these areas. We need to educate people, stop illegal cutting, reduce poverty, because those people are the ones usually that are taking advantage of these unprotected areas. And also, we also have too many people that are trying to get those resources. We can also restore them, the areas, by reforesting, that means planting the trees again, fixing up the areas that are degraded, and making sure that we are managing our farming and ranching in areas that are already cleared, so we're not using other areas. Okay, population growth, poverty, all these different things cause people to cut down trees because basically we need money. People are in different situations than you and I. We don't need the money the same way they do. They do not have the resources, the education, the economic means that we have. So people in these situations quite often find it very difficult to cope. Okay, so the forests, what do they give to us? Ecological services as well as economic services. It's difficult to protect these things because coastal development is very expensive, and a lot of people always want to be by the beach. A lot of these problems are hidden by the government. The vastness of the world's oceans, we can't find all the coasts, can we? And lack of legal jurisdiction, that means that not there aren't too many people that actually have control of these areas. So for example, if I buy a long tract of land on the beach, maybe 20 kilometers in the middle of nowhere, who's going to stop me from destroying or changing it into whatever I want? Well, some people may argue that, well, you should be able to do whatever you want with it. But if you look at the greater, the bigger picture, this can hamper or hinder or cause problems for more people than just one person. So we need to give protection. Well, how can we do that? Here are 5 things listed. You're probably going to need to write these things down as you go through. So I'll give you a couple seconds to look at it. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can always go back and look at this slide on the prezi on the webpage. Okay, that was Chapter 11, Sustaining Terrestrial Biodiversity, the Ecosystem Approach. And by saying this here, the ecosystem approach, basically what I mean is that look at it as a whole system. Don't look at it as individual parts of the system. Please make sure you download the homework outline paper that is on the webpage as well. And have a great day. Also, Chapter 11, critical thinking questions will be due. So on Thursday, we'll be going through the homework questions. We won't go through it. That will be handed in to me. Also, on Thursday, you will have to hand in your critical thinking answers from Chapter 11. And on Thursday, you will be writing a quiz on Chapter 4, 5, and 11. Have a great day.